Welcome to the Altrusian Grace Media Satsang. Satsang is drawn from the Sanskrit words Sat, which is being, essence, or reality, and Sangha, which is association. While Satsang is commonly ascribed to sitting with a guru or spiritual leader, one will find neither here, and no one will claim to be. In the AGM Satsang, it is all about introducing ideas through discourse with true people, or merely to be in the company of true people, particularly those who are seekers on a spiritual path. The aim is not to provide answers, but to stoke the fire of inquisitiveness within each true person, to find the essence of truth within themselves. Those who stay are invited to participate and share their ideas, speculate on possibilities, and enrich their own process of active imagination. Synchronicity and the Vivarium. Synchronicities are always something I've been fascinated with. Even going back 20 years or more, I was looking into the law of synchronicity as a natural phenomenon, a consequence of consciousness. Most of these occurrences involved elements of a mundane type, such as a word or subject that manifests in a short period of time in multiple instances, like a song, movie, television show, or you may even recognize it in an overheard conversation. Another example might be a certain number or series of numbers, like the time on a clock, or the length of a video, or even a street address. Many people also experience similar manifestations of the same synchronicity. This is a widely popular meme with the number 1111 or 33. I have had and continue to have these same synchronistic experiences, especially with time and numbers, but also with more obscure things like a subject I've been researching, popping up all around suddenly, being covered by various individuals or channels, very much like I was tapping into a stream of consciousness, being sent out into the world, and picking up on that on my own, without any seeming outside influence. These things, I always took them to incorporate some kind of meaning, some kind of significance for my life, which I had to investigate or figure out. Most of the time I blatantly had accepted synchronicities in a kind of New Age context, and viewing synchronicity through this lens of perception led me to believe that the universe in some way was giving me a sign that I was on the right path, giving me a proverbial thumbs up or pat on the back as some cosmic gesture of approval. Until recently, I never really questioned this, but I had begun to see certain patterns emerge. Initially, I was able to discern between, as I saw it, two main types of synchronicities. The first being of an organic or analog nature, which most people would associate with the Jungian point of view. These deal with natural interactions in both the physical and psychological realms, and they manifest through dreams and intuitive thoughts, personal and in-person conversations, and other actual events occurring in the material world and our direct organic relationship with it. An excellent and somewhat famous example of this comes directly from Carl Jung's own account of a patient who was telling him in a therapy session about a dream she had about being given a golden scarab. In that moment, he heard a slight tapping on the window only to find an actual scarab beetle flying about. He opened the window, it flew in, and he caught it. In contrast to this analog type of synchronicity, I have recognized what one might call digital synchronicities. These have become more prevalent over the analog synchros in the past 10 to 20 years, as the rise of the internet and online interactions became commonplace. The digital synchronicities include primary and secondary interactions with different types of media. Primary interactions being things like communication with others through email or social media, through texting, and even conversations through phone calls or video chat. A secondary or indirect interaction happens when one listens to a podcast, watches a video, reads an online article, or is streaming some type of music. If you have any kind of synchronistic experiences, you should be able to identify any of these factors and determine if the digitalis potentium had a hand in that experience. In my opinion, I would say that there's a 99% chance of that happening, and would appear to reinforce my observation that less and less of the analog synchrosystem is coming to the surface. Speculatively, this could be happening in an evolutionary manner, as the consciousness of people is continually focused more into the intangible digital database realm and black scrying screens in our pockets and on our desks. But what is the bigger picture here? Is this just the course the universe has decided to take, to guide us along on the path we're supposed to travel? This, to me, now seems too simplistic, too idealistic, too reinforcing of an ego-based identity lacking free will, perhaps. Thanks to some ideas and observations made by my wife, I am now investigating if there is something more going on here, and it could possibly be intermingled with why we are put on Earth. One might think that I'm alluding to simulation theory, that we and all the universe is some kind of grand computer simulation. In some sense, I do find it hard to fully separate that idea from the idea that we live on a kind of prison planet, that there is another world or reality outside of what we know, something similar to the Matrix. But of course, this is not a new idea and has been rehashed a multitude of times with varying levels of belief prostrated over it. Still, it remains relevant as a metaphor from the Gnostic point of view. I think we latch on to this metaphor of a computer simulation as it is what we're familiar with in this point of time. Years from now, it may be something completely different. Relating this to synchronicity, everyone is familiar with the term a glitch in the Matrix, where Neo sees the cat and experiences deja vu. But while the deja vu feeling could be an offshoot or subcategory of synchronicity, I've started interpreting this and synchros in general as anomalous overlaid artifacts of a progressively generated multiverse. This viewpoint does not need imply a computer simulation, but that the environment in which we live requires our technology of mind, our perception of it, in order to develop and exist in our peripheral. The question has been proposed a million times. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it still make a sound? In a progressively generated multiverse, the tree doesn't even fall, meaning a person will see the tree standing on one day and revisit the site on the next day, and the tree will be down. There is no action that has taken place if no one has perceived it in the moment, and yet the tree remains in its overall developed form. It exists in one state, and exists in another state together at the same time as it is still a tree in both upright and fallen positions. Similarly, when one cuts down a large tree and examines the inside, one sees the rings of growth. In the progressive generation of the tree, these rings do not exist until the situation or shape of reality requires them to do so through a process of cause and effect. This is, or could be construed as, a conserving of program resources, much like an open world video game does not generate all levels and environments at once. But I think even more interesting is the idea proposed in recent years of the multiple Big Bang theory, that numerous Big Bangs happened simultaneously, which in itself would be a synchronistic event. This is parallel to the Indian religious idea that the god Rudra, a form of Shiva, meaning the one who roars, bellowed forth creation from his 84 roars. Each of these roars was a universe, or instance of reality, and each one is followed by another in succession, overlapping each other. But as they overlap, the oldest ones have dissipated and no longer exist, and others that still exist are gradually faded in varying degrees depending on their order. This means that the directly previous instance of reality is still going strong in its manifestation, that our perception of it still registers as material form. This is all explained beautifully by the modern mystic Sadhguru in a YouTube video entitled "Parallel Universes Exist." I visualize this as us existing within and represented by a central main circle of reality, surrounded by, penetrated by, and intersected by a series of lesser concentric circles. Each one of these lesser circles contains varying instances of what we know and believe. For those familiar with what is known as the Mandela effect, here lies an enticing explanation related to both science and spirituality for why some people remember one thing from their past, but when looked at currently, it is not as they remembered and has changed in some way, progressively generating into a new state while maintaining its form or essence. For the case of synchronicity, this is also an exceptional description for what might be happening. Say, for example, you are having synchronicities that include the number 42. In the context of an overlapping multiverse, each instance of 42 has the potential to appear in numerous different formats, such as one's age, a news headline containing 42 people, a degree on an astrological chart, etc. 42 thereby retains its actual numerologic essence, while concurrently appearing in various states as you direct attention toward it. When viewed in this way, it is not some fluffy New Age reminder that the universe loves you. In fact, it becomes more evident of the constraining situation of the human condition. It is a product of an intentionally created environment designed to pique your interest, to mesmerize you, to keep you entranced with the illusion of the world. This is the snare of one who is on the path of seeking truth, seeking to escape the program, to avoid the unfortunate cycle of reincarnation, which is part of what is being done to ensure we carry out our prison sentence. These types of synchros are reinforcing a predetermined path, not the path of a realized individual, and actually solidifies a connection to the lower realm. As inhabitants in a prison world, it is essential for whoever is the warden to be able to observe us and to make sure that we carry on thinking we are free. By letting us think, we can make our own choices to venture where we desire. Remember in The Matrix when Neo is given the choice of a red pill or blue pill? Most people have never thought of taking no pill. At the same time, the warden of the prison provides us amenities and nourishment, lets us thrive within the contained environment. This is the Vivarium, which literally means a place for life. More specifically, it is an enclosed area for plants and animals to be kept for observation by recreating an adaptable ecosystem in which the inhabitants function as they would in their native environment, without a clue they are in an enclosed system. As previously stated, this is envisioned as a circular or spherical form or structure, if viewed as a globe Earth, if you will. It is a contained system in which we can never truly venture outwards to space. But also, if one were to be able to walk in a straight line indefinitely, it would seem as an infinite expanse, giving the illusion of free navigation. In theory, in the Vivarium, the keeper or warden would replenish or reintroduce certain things, such as nourishment or enrichment activities. Metaphysically, these would be intellectual or spiritual pursuits under false doctrines, but having certain validity within the contained system. They get the individual nowhere in any genuine advancement of his true self and sideline his true will. A real person would also encounter facsimiles of other humans to interact with. These could be what are known as organic portals, or OPs for short, vessels for a baseline consciousness and being limited or lacking inherent analog abilities such as imagination and creation. The organic portals would be fully functional in most physical endeavors, but upon a deeper interaction with them, the OPs would prove to be shallow, with little to no interest in the subject of the true self, never contemplating anything beyond what is put before them. They revel in the daily grind of pointless activities, gossip, and mindless entertainment. They are the inside agents of the Vivarium's functioning program, their minds readily available to the archonic forces that steer the destiny of true humans. It is because of this that I would assume organic portals outnumber true human beings. OPs would have the ability to organize under a hive mind and coordinate elaborate synchronistic events and storylines to keep true individuals lost in the crowd and unable to assemble with each other, much less for one to even find the others. We can recognize certain iterations of the organic portals within the NPC meme and label, those who behave in predictable actions and only speak in predetermined scripted dialogues. As well, we also see this same character type arise in the work of Carl Jung in his book Modern Man in Search of a Soul, where the fully realized true modern man forges his own path and pursuits and is familiar with the pains of yearning and unknowing. Around him, he is flanked by the pseudo-moderns, like moths to a single light in the darkness. The pseudo-moderns are envious of the true modern man and yearn to imitate his position without traversing the hurdles and trials it takes to become this fully realized individual. modern man then associates with the fading ghosts of the past incarnations of existence, finding solace among elders who remember the authentic ways of being human. As he tries to hide himself, the pseudo-moderns are busy like bees, constructing the illusion of real modernity and filling it with the gross specters of mass media and mainstream entertainment, weaving a tangled web of what one might call synchronistic content. Each one of these things being a pitfall and deterrent, the intangible fodder without substance for an individual on the path to enlightenment. When combined, they provide a false, mirrored sense of meaning. One who loses vigilance and displays a lack of caution and discernment will, in the end, prove easy prey for the antagonists of Gnosis. All this is not to say that synchronicity is a bad thing. There are many, many instances of them being primarily positive experiences, beneficial to people in the advancement of their worldly lives. Numerous breakthroughs, culturally, technologically, and otherwise, were ushered in by untold synchronistic events. The commentary here is to open a door to think about this phenomenon in such a respect as to recognize it as a curated enticement of the system at large. Simply by reading or listening to this, perceptive individuals will identify synchronicities that were generated through such actions. Whether it be a programmed algorithm or a symptom of a pseudo-spiritual cause and effect process, the fact remains that it exists outside of our true selves. And I will end this session with a quote by Manly P. Hall. "We can only escape from the world by outgrowing the world. Death may take man out of the world, but only wisdom can take the world out of the man. As long as the human being is obsessed by worldliness, he will suffer from the karmic consequences of false allegiances. When, however, worldliness is transmuted into spiritual integrity, he is free, even though he still dwells physically among worldly things."